Good morning and good evening again to everyone watching. Thank you for joining us in our session for this TikTok Prayground series this year. Today we have Father Joseph Tham all the way from Italy with us, and we have a beautiful bunch of youth here who are ready to understand Father's life, his journey, and hopefully that we all get something out of it as well. Take it away, Father.
Okay, so I introduce myself again. My name is Father Joseph Tham. I was born in Hong Kong, and then after that, my family moved to Canada, and there I studied in University of Toronto. I did mathematics first, and then after that, I got into medical school. And after graduation, I worked for 4 years as a doctor. And after that, I joined the seminary. I went to Rome. I studied philosophy, theology, and then after that, my main area of teaching now is in bioethics. So I've been teaching bioethics for the last 15 years or so. So I guess I have to teach in Italian, Spanish, English, and Cantonese. Those are the 4 languages that I have to teach in. So I guess I have something to share with you. I'm not an expert in education, but I have a lot of background in education. So hopefully what I'm going to share with you would be helpful, and maybe you could have some questions at the end. So first of all, I think we live in an age that seems like there's a lot of information. Information is everywhere, very accessible. You turn on the internet, you connect, and you get a lot of things going on. I mean, the world is on your fingertip. So, but then I think it's very important to distinguish between information, which we can get freely, accessible, available everywhere we connect, and formation. Formation is something else. I think this is about what we're talking today about education. Formation is about how do you grow as a person. Once again, it's related to career choice, but not only, right? It's how do you grow as a person? How do you become the person you aspire to be? And that's what education is part of it. University education is part of it, but it's not the end of it either. So hopefully, through this process, the goal is how do we grow as a person in all the different dimensions. Obviously, the knowledge is something that you seek now when you're growing, learning in school. But it's not just knowledge. A lot of times it's habits, it's virtues, values, growing in wisdom, making the right choices in life. And so it's basically a combination of many other things that is not just information or just knowledge based. And this is what education is all about. It's about how do you grow into a better person. And I think it's also related to your career choice, right? So I think the first thing, once you know that this is what education is all about, okay, then you have to find out, okay, what do I want to be? You all have mentioned to me some of the aspirations or ideas or careers that you would like to become involved. I think part of the process of education is that you, in the process, not just attaining or gaining more knowledge base, but to find out about yourself. You know, this is the Greek model: know thyself. Who are you? What are you like interiorly? It's basically about your personality, your characteristics, what are your strengths, and also your defects. I mean, we all have different background and upbringing, and that shapes the way we are, who we are. And I think this is very important because sometimes in education, we think only about getting a degree and finding a job. But then it's more than that. It's really trying to figure out really what is it that fits me, that fulfills me, that I guess would make me successful not necessarily in a monetary sense, but basically a sense of fulfillment and realizing myself. You know? So I think that's very important, that you don't take university education only just as an acquiring of certain skills or knowledge, but also about finding about who you are and what you want to become. And I think a lot of times when we grow up, I mean, like at your age, I mean, we all have a different dreams. Who do I want to become? What career I want to do? And what do I want? I mean, you think about that. You know, people always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, it's a typical question that adults ask the kids. But sometimes we don't really know how to answer that because we have some kind of inklings, but we really don't know because we don't know who we are. We don't know what we're good at. We don't know what our strengths are, and also what our difficulties would be when we are faced with challenges in life in the future, right? So I think it's very important that when you look at education as a process, as a journey of self-knowledge. In fact, I would say a lot of times we think that we enter into university, we find that degree, we finish that degree, and we will find our career path. It usually doesn't work like that. Most people I know usually has to explore. It's an exploration rather than a definitive choice, and things to change. Like me, when I started school, I started to do something that I enjoy, math, right? But I wouldn't have known that later on I'd become a priest and then I'd be involved in something totally different, in ethics, something quite different. So I mean, I have certain inklings. I thought my talents was more towards the paths of the sciences, so math, something very logical, and then medicine, something very biological. But then now I find that what I'm really fascinated about is something else, right? It's more in the area of the arts or the humanities, which is, you know, philosophy, religions, theology, the aesthetics, all different things that are not really what I started off with, something that I was trying to pursue. So, I mean, that's also something you have to be able to realize and to recognize that once you discover yourself more, you will try to fulfill that. Now, it's not always easy, that path, right? It's always filled with a lot of pitfalls and setbacks, and that's part of life, right? That's part of life. But I think it's also important to realize that just it's a process. Actually, usually I tell most people the first degree is not that important. The first degree that you do in university is really not that important because you really don't know what you want to do. So university education in the first stage is really about yourself. It's learning about yourself. So you're learning what you're good at, what you're not good at. It's learning about your strengths. I mean, strengths, it's not just about intellectual strengths. It could be about habits, right? Because when you're in university, you're no longer in high school. The teacher's not always, pushing you. You have to study on your own. So you do not have the discipline or the habits or your emotional stability, all those kind of things. Then you might not be able to persevere in something that you like, right? Let's say in high school, you were really good in math, right? And so you think, oh, I would do a career in engineering, right? Since I'm good in math. But then once you get into engineering school, you realize that, well, a lot of times engineering requires things that I'm not good at. I'm not good with my hands. I'm not good with experiments. I'm very, very sloppy, as a person. So even though I'm good at math, there's certain things that I don't have, right? And so you basically might feel frustrated or whatever, right? And so that's something that I think is very important to know, to recognize that most people nowadays do more than one degree. Okay, so there's always a second chance or third chance. Like me, I have 7 degrees, so I mean, I haven't finished. I'm still working on my 8th degree. No, actually, I'm kidding. I'm done with my degrees. But it's also very important to know that, okay, that education is a process, it's a ongoing process. You keep learning, it never ends. And so the thing about education is that a lot of times we link our education to our career, our job. There's also something, I mean, to be realistic, this is what we all think about. I want to educate myself so that I can find a job that pays well, that can basically help me survive. That's the basic thing. And then hopefully it will be also something that I enjoy doing. But reality is something quite different. I quote you 2 statistics, okay? One statistics is that 80% of people are not working in the field that they specialize in. That's to say, 80% of the people who graduate from a degree in university end up working in some other thing that is not the discipline that they graduated in, 80%. Okay. Another sad statistics, also about 85% of people are not happy with the job that they're in, but they keep that job because this is for survival. So this is a real, I mean, this is realistic. I mean, I don't want to discourage you, but this is what just the statistics tells us out there, right? So once again, so this is very important about education. We have been changing also in the way we teach. I noticed that I've been changing in the way I've been teaching in the last 10 years, or even the last 5 years. I constantly try to change because society change, people change, the expectation change. Before we didn't have internet, now there's a lot of internet. So, I mean, do I really need to give them all the details, asking them to memorize all these facts and these numbers and these things really in course, because they could just connect and find out right away rather than use their brain. So, I mean, is it really necessary? So, I mean, so changing education is also something that's going on in most universities. You either adapt or you basically get eliminated. So that's part of it. So one of the things about education is that also, in that sense, the traditional fields of education is also changing, in the sense that in the old days, they're more very, I guess, established career paths. Medicine, law, accounting, business, engineering, architect, nursing, and so on, right? These are very set paths that people follow. But they're more knowledge and skill-based type of education. But I think it's changing now, okay? It's changing now. Just like what I told you before, 80% of people who finish one of these career paths end up doing something else, okay? So basically, it's not really, it's saying that it's not really that essential for that person to have gained that degree or that knowledge or the skill in that career, right? So what it means is that it's not that part which is most important, it's actually other things that are associated with it. So the other types of what we call competency, other than knowledge, right, is something else. I would say a lot of people now look at other things, companies as well. They look at the ability to work in a team, teamwork, right? Not a skill, but a soft skill. Can you in a team? Do you have creativity? Can you adapt? Do you have ability to innovate? To be able to find the relationships and create something new in what you're doing, right? So another way of looking at it, in the old days, the measurement of success is your IQ, right? How smart you are, right? But now there are other measurements that they talk about. Have you heard of EQ? You've heard of EQ, which is the emotional quotients, right? The ability for you to relate to other people, to understand them, be sensitive. So that's important for teamwork, because in the end, when you work in a company, most of the time you don't work alone, right? You have to relate to other people, and EQ is very important. I also talk about the two other Qs that come up is AQ and CQ, okay? AQ is called adversity quotients, right? It means that how capable are you to adapt to adversity, right? So the failures, to if things don't work, okay, do you just, I mean, some people can't handle failures, right? You fail, then you just become a block. Oh, I can't do anything. I'm stuck. I can't. You freeze, right? If you are like that, then you have a very low AQ, right? Someone who has learned how to pick up and keep going, okay, again and again, has a very high AQ, adversity quotients, can pick up and keep going. I mean, that's really a sign of resistance and discipline and virtue. I mean, those are different things, right? So the other thing is called CQ, is called a cultural quotients, the ability to be sensitive to different cultural environments, especially today. I mean, this whole thing about globalization, that you might be able to transfer to work in different countries, Asia or Africa or North America, and how well you are adapted to be able to work in different cultural environments and recognize the differences and that they don't bother you. I mean, that's CQ, right? Because this is something that is also something that is being talked about, at least in education. Now, those skills, sometimes you can learn it in university. A lot of times they're not something you learn directly in university. And that's the problem because, I mean, how do you learn teamwork? How do you learn to be creative? How do you learn to be culturally sensitive? All those things indirectly, maybe you learn in university, but not specifically, in the sense that you don't get graded on them, right? You don't get evaluated on them. So since it's not something directly interested by you, by the professors necessarily, then it's not being evaluated. And so in some way, students are not also interested in this, right? But this is difference between, once again, the difference between education as just acquiring a skill set to education as something that is much more wider, the formation of the whole person. So other than that, I guess I want to say also, there's also the job market. I mentioned that is changing. The world is changing. Job market is changing also. So I was telling you that there are no longer these tracks that are more traditional. They're still there, but they're also more alternative tracks. And what I usually tell people is that to be able to survive in the job market, if this is what you want to do, is to be able to diversify, right? And that's why I think is why this phenomenon of people getting more than 1 degree or 2 degrees is that when you have different degrees, then you can combine them in a new way, right? So people who are just, for example, let's say even a very traditional track, I say some of you mentioned architecture, right? So it's more like a science that is related to buildings and how to very physical and then things like that. Let's say you do architecture and then you do a second degree in psychology, right? Totally unrelated, right? But then maybe since you have that knowledge in psychology, thinking about how people think, how people envision, how people gets happy and things like that, that extra added knowledge that you have puts you in a different position than other architects that had no training in psychology, let's say, So that combination will give you an edge, right? So that's what's happening, I think, in the future, that there will be these kind of combination degrees that will allow innovation, allow creativity go in. And I think it's also good to combine the science degrees with humanity degrees because they're kind of like complementary in some way. And so I think that's what I think, especially today with this situation with the coronavirus, it is coming out more clearly, right? If you cannot adapt, then basically you will possibly not survive. If something like coronavirus happens, right? Certain industries are suffering, right? Let's say you were a pilot, right? And you only learn how to fly, but that's all you could do. Now, basically, you're out of a job. Before, you have a very cushy job, right? Made a lot of money. Now, you're out of a job because you're not hired, you're not needed. So how do you survive that for the next 2 years, 4 years? Right? If you don't have the extra edge, let's say you studied something else so that you can adapt to something or you can branch out to something else, then maybe it'll be tough for you, right? So those who could basically survive, and this is just one example, right? So the job market is the very fact that the job market is changing, is moving, and it's a moving target. We don't know what the future is like. The ability to adapt and to innovate and to be creative is something that I think will be something of the future, something that you should think about. Once again, the last point I want to talk about is what I started at the beginning, that what we want is the formation of the person and not just information. So learning is a lifelong process. You don't finish learning when you finish your university studies. You keep learning because it has to do with the fact that you don't want to be just kind of like get stuck in one thing, right? Even when you're stuck with one thing, you always want to kind of find out more about that thing that you're good at, right? So you can actually go further, right? I would, I would recommend, right, especially that it should be a habit that you form in university. You want to learn for the sake of learning, but also not just for the sake of learning in the sense that not just for the degree or for the grade or for the career, but I want to make learning a habit in me, that I would always want to know more about what's going on. So I mean, that's basically what I talked about when I talk about creativity, is someone who basically is able to have a, I guess, a wider view of reality, not just enclosed in their little bubble, but kind of like see what's going on in maybe in their profession, but also in the world, in the country. So if you have a better view of what's going on around you, then you're able to basically either adapt or move or change and increase your mobility. And so for me, I think it's important to keep reading. I'm talking about books, okay, books. Not just comics and YouTube and TikTok, right? I mean, serious things that you need to read. And that actually is a habit, right? It's a habit. You have to create that habit of reading and trying to enrich yourself. Read things that are maybe totally unrelated to your profession, right? Something, and I would say the thing that are, for me, most interesting for now is to read history, to read literature and philosophy. And also the arts. So that's something that I think it gives you, widens your perspective on reality and gives you that flexibility to adapt to whatever you're in. And actually, through that, you can actually, I mean, what I talked about, self-fulfillment is interesting in the sense that most people are unhappy with what they are doing. It's because they're stuck in that job for survival, right? And there's no longer any improvement. There's no longer any self-improvement for themselves. They're stuck there, right? They can move anywhere because this is a good paying job, but I don't like it, right? I mean, that's it. Because once you don't have flexibility, adaptability, you're stuck, right? So I think it's all related, what I'm trying to say, that you don't stop learning at university, but you keep learning as a lifelong process, and that will help you. The last thing that I think I mentioned in my talk is about what is new, what's going to happen with this post-COVID society. I think there'll be a lot of changes, and once again, we don't know what the changes are going to be like, for better or for worse. There will be certain things that we would see might not be good for society. I mean, for example, we talked about globalization before, but now maybe it will be less mobility. A lot of countries are closing the borders, closing their industry, making it more local.
Thank you again. Let's give a reaction clap hands, or just like clap hands for Father. Thank you so much again, Father, for coming after your lunchtime to give us your insight, especially with all the wisdom that you've accumulated with your 7 degrees and the couple of books that you have on your shelf. It's really nice, because personally I feel very affirmed as well. My friends and I, who are already out of university, we always complain about, man, what did we actually learn in school? Like, did we actually learn? Are we getting better? And it's good to hear that from your perspective as well, that what a degree is kind of just a formation for each of our characters, each of us growing up. And one thing that my friends and I like to say is that each degree feels like it's a framework. So you learn, when you receive your degree, you kind of see the world through this lens. Let's say I studied marketing, so now the way I see the world is through marketing, how pricing works in the market, how the costs and the promotions and everything. But my friend who studied political science, she is more in the framework of, oh, this is because these countries are in tension with each other, and that's why all of these things are moving. So it's really just my personal comment. But yeah, I don't want to take away from those who want to ask questions. So yeah, for Alec, I know you want to ask a question.
2 questions, if that's okay. So the first question is, how did your reason to study change over time from when you first started your degree, then the following degrees? And then what would you say should be the reason to study or continue studying?
Okay, I guess it's also life presents itself with different opportunities. I think a lot of times it's the choices are made for you rather than you choose them. And that's also part of life, right? So for example, math was the only thing that I chose myself to study, right? So math was, I was good in math. And so I went into university and did pure math. Pure math is quite demanding. It's a lot of algebra, number theory, group theory, very abstract math. It's not applied math. So that's what I was fascinated with, right? But then when I finished first year of math, I realized that, no, I can't do this. I realized that, for example, I could not be a mathematician because I'm not smart enough. Because you have these people who are genius and they could basically give them a problem, they solve it like in a day. It would take me 1 week for a lot of hard work. And they would just kind of have intuition. I don't have that. And if I don't become a mathematician, I realize that, well, I could be a math teacher, but it didn't really appeal to me to be a teacher. So I thought, oh, okay, what I'm going to do. And then at the time, my dad, Chinese, the Asian family, they always said, well, go into medicine, right? So I said, well, I don't know if this is good for me, but in some way to get them off my back, I said, okay, I have the grades. So one thing that was unexpected was that in math, I got really good grades. Because in math, you can get 100, right? You didn't get it right or wrong, right? So I was able to get high grades in math. And so I was able to get medicine because if you were to have to study in English or something like it's difficult to get 100, right? So in math, I was able to get high grades, so I got into medicine. And when I got medicine, I really enjoyed it. It was not something I expected. It also developed my personality because now I had to open up. Before I was quite shy. Now I have to relate to people. And I realized that medicine is like math. Like just that it's a math, you have to solve a problem, okay? A problem in front of you. Now you have a problem, which is a person in front of you who has a disease. You have to make more or less a calculation in some way. I mean, now I can see it back and looking back. It's very much like a math problem, a complex problem, but the manufacturers, manufactorials, how do they interact with each other, what probability. So you're actually solving a math problem somewhat, but it's more biological and it's a person. And so there's another element to that, which is also the human dimension. And I really, for me, it was something that I was very fascinated. And then after med school, I started to work in medicine as a doctor. And there I realized that I wasn't totally happy with medicine because I realized that I want to help people and to cure the illness, to cure disease. But I realized that most of the time, I could only touch them superficially. I can cure their body, but I could not cure their spirit. And so in some way that led me to become a priest, because I realized that, well, is there some way I could really help them really? No, not just superficially, because I mean, you see someone who comes in with a gastric ulcer or whatever, and then the problem is you can cure the ulcer. The problem there behind them is problem with them, with the family, with the work, human relationships, many different problems with relationships, right? So there basically it's like it kind of like it caused me to think, how can I really help people in a much deeper way? And that pushed me to discover priesthood. And then after that, and then the other thing is more like, I did philosophy, theology as part of training to be a priest. There's nothing you can choose from. That's compulsory. And then since I had my degree in medicine, and at the same time, our university was starting a degree program in bioethics. And that's why I said, okay, you are the perfect candidate. So you should do this. I said, okay. Well, I didn't want to do it, but I said, okay, let me think about it. And then I ended up doing this. So it's kind of like, life is like that, actually. Life is like that. A lot of times it's doors opening, doors closing. You get kind of like pushed into one way or the other way. It's not something, sometimes it's you, but sometimes it's more like, I guess, things just happen like in that direction. So, yeah, so that's the way it is. That's the way life is. Right? But that's also part of, that's why learning is a lifelong process. The thing is that you could stop, right? You could close the door and say, I don't want to learn anymore. I don't want to improve myself anymore. I don't want to grow anymore. And that would be a tragedy.
Actually, can I ask a follow-up? Sorry, just like
Go ahead.
last. So how did you, like, Father, how did you discern whether what you're studying is worthwhile and not a waste of time? It's like, in my experience, or at least the people that I know, especially in Hong Kong, it's like, yeah, I want to do something that I like, but at the same time, it's like, is this sustainable? And then you have to decide whether, like, oh, should I pursue something that I want, or should I just...
Right. Have you seen the movie That Poor Society? Yeah. So that's the question you're asking. Should I go for my dream, or should I be realistic and go for something secure that I think will at least could survive on? But I think there is a false dichotomy in there. I think is because it's once again going back to the fact that a lot of things that we think are secure are not really just secure, right? You said, just like my example, my pilot, right? That's a secure thing, but now it's not secure anymore. So I think the society, the world is changing. So a lot of these things that are previously more secure type of career paths, I mean, it can give you a sense of human security. But I think if you're not, let's say you do that and you really hate it, right? Then you're not going to grow in it. You're not going to find fulfillment in it. I mean, obviously, you have to be realistic, okay? But then you should always, I mean, for me, I think there's no one job that is kind of like meaningless, right? Let's say if you're good at cooking, right? If you're good at cooking, go for it. I mean, the best chefs in the world make millions of dollars too, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's up to you how you take advantage of that dream of yours and bring it to a higher level, right? So there's no limits as to how you could explore your potential. I mean, that's all I can tell you. I mean, the parents are probably not going to like it, but that's the way it is, right? I know when I gave up medicine to become a priest, my father was totally against it. I mean, he didn't like that at all. He said, "You're a doctor, you're making a lot of money and security, and now you want to become a priest." But that was different because it's also a calling. But that was exactly, it was medicine led me to priesthood in some way, right? Because it was become a healer of souls rather than healer of body, right? So they're linked together, but just like, so don't limit yourself. I think some people do that. But if you are just doing something just for the security, I don't know, tend towards more follow your dream in the sense that this is what will make you happy and successful in the end. What you like, not like the 85% of people who are unhappy with what they're doing.
We still respect our parents, but tell them, you know what, this is not what will continue to make me happy, and I want to shift to something else. So how did you go about that?
I don't think I did a very good job, but at least at least I did medicine, which was not something I wanted to do, right? I did something that to please my dad, right? And when I finished medicine, I paid off the debt that they have, right? Before I went into the seminary. So I did something, I think I did my duty. There's no easy answer. No easy answer there, right?
Actually, I have a question for all of us as well. Father talked about, in his talk, he talked about competencies and how each of us, we have our own strength. What strength do you believe you have? Alec, can you start with your strength and then you can popcorn your way through everybody else?
I like discovering how people work. I like asking how other people work and then sort of apply it to my life. This in the form of writing, where when you discover more about a person or more about a thing, more about an issue, then who wouldn't want to share it with the rest of the world of what you thought, right? So with writing, at least I think I'm good at writing. It's a way for me to express myself. Yeah, like for example, like currently I'm doing, I'm working for a magazine and I enjoy it because I get to express myself, but I get to do it low key. So like, for example, if I'm interviewing a person, then of course it's all about that person, right? But it depends on how you would approach that person. The interview will go a certain way. So to put it back, I would say I like approaching things my way, but not in a way where it's like overbearing to the other
person.
Sure. Is it Josiah or Josh?
I think my strengths are towards in arts, because in my free time I really like to draw, just sketching whenever I'm free. or make digital art in my free time. So yeah, I think art is one of my strengths. And so my electives at school are art and physics, and some people get shocked why I picked those two, because they're not really related to each other. But then when I say that I want to be an architect when I grow up, and it kind of makes sense choosing arts and physics, because architects need to be good in art with all those drawings, and you need to know a little bit of physics with doing architect. So yeah, I think my strength is towards more in arts.
Pick the next person.
Francis.
Hello. Okay. So the first thing that came to mind when it comes to strength, I guess maybe it's because it was just built onto me. It was just forced upon me, and I discovered the strength. So what I believe to be my strength is leadership. Well, it's because it constantly happens in school where no one wants to lead, or they are particularly like nervous and like they don't want to deal with the situation. So they always force me to do it. But what I've noticed that I also tend to get nervous, but when I see other people nervous, for some reason it helps me like cool down, and I'm able to like be calm, I guess you can say, in like the face of adversity. I'm able to help lead others. For example, I've had a drama competition, and Josh was with me. He was one of the star actors. Apparently, I just had to become the director. I was leading everyone's roles, even though we had a 10-minute just span like of preparing everything because it was improvised. So even though the environment was very pressuring, for some reason I felt like I was in a calm state. I was able to remain calm and help others. I saw that my other members were like very nervous. They were shaking, but I was able to help lead them, get their attention, and guide them to what helped us win the competition and such. And yeah.
Thank you, Francis. I didn't get to see the show. Okay, you can pick the next person.
Maureen.
So I'm not really sure what my strength was, but maybe like first coming to mind, maybe like people say I'm more like have this big determination like to learn more stuff, like learn something far ahead what we can learn now. Since like I want to study medicine, yes, like some people say medicine is hard for people, like maybe not really what they're interested, or it's too like far beyond for what they're thinking. But as for me, I have this like determination to learn more, and then I always have this kind of feeling like when I see some people are getting sick or people are like they're suffering, either whether they're physically or spiritually, I feel like I have this determination to do it, pursue it, and yeah. So I guess determination is my biggest strength, I guess.
Thank you. All right, you can pass it on to the next one.
Bepana?
Strength, okay, I have a lot of weaknesses, but talking about strength, I think I am like I pick up things fast, like I learn things quicker. Yes, and yeah, but I'm still searching for strength, a lot of strength. Yeah, so I can work on it. I'm still working on it. I'm still searching for it. Yeah, just like one of our friends said that he was like he's he's like looking at how other people work or something like that. So I think it's like a way to also learn about yourself like that. So yeah, Alec, right, Alec, yes. Oh yeah, he said something like that. Yeah, and I totally agree with him. And yeah, and I'll pass it to Agil.
I think
You know.
I know my strength is being able to listen, I guess. To explain it more, I think because I'm usually the person people come up to, especially in my friend group, who they talk about their problems with, and it's not a flex, but I think it's more that they feel more comfortable with me because they know that honestly I don't talk a lot over them. I'm really only someone who listens and tries to give the best of advice that I can, but I'm also someone who's just always there for them and just reassure them that I'll always be here even if everyone else isn't. And I think that's why I wanted to take something up in the communications field, is to be able to communicate with people. Doesn't have to be verbally, non-verbal, because that's how we got through living in Hong Kong for all our lives. It's not only through talking but understanding.
Sure.
So I think I know that is my strength.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Raf.
I guess my stubbornness. I guess, yeah. Or like, yeah, because it's
Explain.
sometimes I'm so stubborn to get what I want, because sometimes the plan I made needs to be fulfilled, and if someone tries to change it, I know that their plan of how they want to do things will not work because I've already thought about it. Yeah, so my stubbornness of like getting things done my way. Yeah, it's like my way or the highway.
And I guess, so my strength, I know, is getting things started and getting people together. I've been told quite frequently that if there's an event that needs to happen, they always ask me, so what do we want to do? And usually I get really annoyed because I would like some other people to start thinking about how events work. But usually when the ideas come, they come, and I get so excited, feel much more excited when I come home like at 8 or something and still do this. I'm more excited for this than like my work, which is not the best, but Father is telling us, sometimes we do it to survive, to appease our parents, and it is a journey that I'm going through. Cool. So thank you for all of your strengths. One last question, kind of. So we talked about success. Father, do you believe that all of us here will be successful one day?
Well, only God knows. I mean, depends on how you define successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, I don't aim for success. I never aim for success in my life, right? I think I aim for what we call fidelity. Fidelity to my call, to my being, okay? So whether it's success or not, it's a very human concept, right? Successful in someone's eyes could be a failure. Something that is a failure could be a success, right? So at least from a spiritual point of view, right? For me, for example, the greatest failure was basically the cross, right? Jesus died on the cross. Human speaking, the worst thing. Now, he is a failure from a human point of view. He died, all his followers abandoned him, and so on. But from a spiritual point of view, it's the greatest success, right, in humanity, because he fulfilled God's plan, and it's through his death that there is success, in the sense of accomplishing his mission. So I mean, a great failure from one perspective is a great success from another perspective. So human life is like that too, right? Sometimes a failure, let's say you go bankrupt. It's for some people, that could be something temporary, and then through that bankruptcy, he able to become something else, right? Change his career, change his life, become a better person. And whatever, right? So, I mean, life is like that, right? So I'm not really interested in success or failure in human terms, but how am I being honest to myself? Am I being authentic? Am I following my call, right? Following my vocation, that kind of thing. Those are more important values for me than success, because yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of paradox, right? I have 7 degrees. I speak 4 languages. Humanly speaking, you think this is like, but it's not really something I look for, right? Or something that I at the beginning of my career, I said, I'm going to get 7 degrees. I'm going to speak 4 languages. I'm going to do all these kind of things, write seminary books. I mean, I didn't plan for that at all, right? I just try to be faithful to what I've been called to do. And then the other things come or they don't come, and I'm happy, right? I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And I think that's most important.
Well, on that note, Father, that's a really good note to end on. So directed at all the people who are going to be watching or who are watching, are you staying true to yourself, and are you being authentic to the calling? I believe that's a beautiful message that ultimately what TikTok Playground is about. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Father Joseph, for giving us your talk. Thank you to all the youth who are here, even those who aren't showing their face, but you're still here with us. Thank you so much. And for all of you who are getting their grades for the DSE, we hope the best for you. And again, stay authentic, stay true. And thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pray 即係祈禱啦，跟住 ground is like an area, right? So it's really a play on playground 同埋 Prayground 嘅分別。It is a platform for 唔同嘅 group 去 create 一啲佢哋覺得佢想做嘅嘢。Music or art or theatre。一開頭係想有一個活動，可以又有祈禱嘅 element， 但係又有玩嘅元素，即係 fun element as well。可能有啲人咧走過兩次啦，因為我會考咧同埋 A level 啦。For you to express your emotions through the form of writing. Crazy. What is writing? Is it DSE like writing?
Oh no, it's not DSE writing. You can save that for later.
No. 7月22號就係 DSE 放榜啦，咁我哋想喺放榜之前有一個活動俾到年青人，係一個可以幫佢哋放鬆心情嘅活動 because the results are coming out, so everyone is super nervous. 但係其實 at this point, all you can really do is enjoy yourself and let whatever happens happen.